Hello, my name is Joseph Carlson, and this is episode 177 of Gaming with Grief, and I'm calling this episode Guardians of the Galaxy and a Surprise. But I want to remind you guys that this podcast hit my website, www.gamingwithgrief.com, Monday morning at 7 a.m., so please go there. Let me know what you think of the show. You can also subscribe to the podcast in either Apple iTunes, the Google Play Store, Spotify, and the audio of the podcast goes up on YouTube at 7 a.m., just like it does on the website. You can also write to me at gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. Please go there, leave a comment, let me know what you think of the show, give me all the ratings, all that kind of stuff. And I'm on social media. I'm on Twitter at JustLittleJoe. So go to those places. You can interact with me that way. And so, you know what? I'll start the episode this way. I have not finished Guardians of the Galaxy yet. I'm very close. The only reason that I didn't want to rush the episode or wait till 8 o'clock is I do like to sit with the game for a while before I give my full review. And so I apologize to anybody that's just been waiting for my impressions of Guardians of the Galaxy. But I will say this. As I was playing the game, I hadn't really heard a lot of spoilers, everything about the game in my head. I haven't read anything about it. I tried to kind of stay spoiler-free, and the reviews I read were fairly, I'm not going to say generic, but also I think, they either weren't allowed or they didn't really spoil, the big reveals in the game. And the thesis I had in the beginning of the game when I sat down to play it was I thought it was going to be about friendship and being this reluctant leader. That was in the early parts of the game. But I think about 8 chapters in, there's 16 chapters in the game. I want to say about 7 or 8 chapters in, the game became about grief. And I was really blown away. So that's kind of minor spoilers, I guess, for the game. But if you come this far, hopefully you're playing along and you got to that point. And I just got to say, totally I had all these articles I was reading. I read some of them before. I was like, okay, I got to pull together some more stuff on leadership, and I have to dig deep within myself and see if I can talk about what it's like being a leader in difficult situations. Some of that stuff I've talked about before, but I wanted to kind of round up all my thoughts. I'm trying to get more, I don't know if serious is right, or I'm very serious about the podcast, but I was thinking of starting to write scripts, and I thought, okay, let's sit down, write some thoughts out, maybe more than just a couple bullet points on a piece of paper. Let me really try to coalesce my thoughts around what's going on. And then this kind of surprise comes, halfway through the game, that this whole game you're actually dealing with grief. And for the little bit I know about Guardians of the Galaxy, from the movies and the few animated things I've seen with them in it here and there, lightly, you do know that people on the team have lost, people in their lives. They retell those stories. Again, I don't want to spoil the whole game for people if you're playing along. But I'm really just been thinking about it all day. I have probably 3 chapters left till I'm done. I still, even though I don't really review, a lot of mechanics and things like that, I still think that this game, when the combat kind of clicks over and you get more tricks up your sleeve, basically switching to different elements in your gun, when you unlock all of your, basically heroes have an epiphany, and I like that they tie their ultimate skills to kind of a mental or physical roadblock they were going through. To just keep it to Star-Lord, he is the leader. He wants to help out his team. His ultimate is a unlimited shield. He's basically invulnerable for seconds. But it allows you to go around, help the team out, issue orders, things like that. It's pretty amazing. Rocket doesn't like water, and so his ultimate is the ability to not hold back. Once he faces his fear of water, he explains why in the game. I'm not going to give that away. But once you unlock that, he basically unlocks a mini mech suit that kind of grows around him, and he just unleashes fury on people. What I think is crazy is that they tie this stuff to mental health in a way, which is really fascinating, And I haven't unlocked it for the other characters, but there's only 2 left. I'm sure one of them I will unlock in the next chapter because the Drax just had a major kind of emotional beat, and I think it would make sense for it to unlock in the next chapter. But I'll say this. What I thought about the game was good, that it was about teamwork, being a leader, pulling people together. That stuff is still reinforced in the game. But it just became about grief, and now everybody's talking about how to deal with loss, how to move on, how to find a new family. There's only one little line that kind of got me, kind of was off, but I mean everything else around it is great. And so with that, I'm throwing at, not throwing out. I'm not even, well, I don't even know if I want to disregard my notes. But it's one of those things where you're going down the path, you're like, this is what this is what this is, and then it just totally flips itself on its head and says, no, we're going to be something else, and we're going to say something really profound about this other thing. Is amazing. It does play with the trope a little bit that I don't like in fiction. That idea of, well, we can just give you back your loved one, and it's dealt with nice after that's kind of discovered. They kind of play with that trope, and it kind of goes away a little bit, or at least is at least explained away. But there's got to be a different way. I will say, although I don't usually talk about mechanics or anything like that, there is this weird thing in this where they keep doing the thing where they, I want to push on with the narrative. Again, I think the combat is okay, not great. But they do this thing, and every game does it, where it's like, well, we can't just let them get from point A to point B. We have to throw in a puzzle. And you're like, okay. And then it's like, well, hit this switch. Oh, you know what? The door, you got to hit these two switches. Oh, you know what? The door to this other switch is locked. So, they don't really explain anything. There is a hint button, but it only comes up very late in the process if you're kind of, like I got stuck in a room and realized I was doing stuff out of order, so I had to like reset a checkpoint and like redo this stuff. And to me, I think it's because I'm liking the banter so much between the characters and me speaking to them in the next cutscene and what they're saying, especially now that they've kind of blown it up and it's all about grief and loss. I'm like, we need to get to that. We need to get to that. I don't want to do the puzzle. I don't know. And the only other thing I'll say that's kind of a negative. I'm having audio glitches. So there's a lot of cross chatter between team members. Rocket will say something, and then Gamora will go, oh, yeah, really? For sure. Or they'll make fun of each other. Even Star-Lord, you have a choice. You hit X, and then you hit left or right or whatever to make a choice, like side with Gamora, side with Rocket, that kind of stuff. Just the audio doesn't come up. So I have the subtitles on, which is fine. But, in a movie with subtitles, when you're passively sitting watching a movie, you kind of take everything in. My wife and I are watching Rings of Power, and we're kind of like, whoa, like we're kind of taking everything in. This is pretty nuts. And if we put subtitles on, because obviously it's a fantasy show, and there's tons of fantasy stuff in that. So it's like, what word are we missing, or phrase, or place? Don't we know what that is? I don't know, if they're saying something in Elvish. In fact, it would translate some of the languages the elves are speaking and some of the orcs. Anyway, when you're passively sitting watching a movie, you can take all that in and read the subtitles. And I love watching foreign movies and stuff. It doesn't bother me. But when you're playing a game and have to actively interact with an environment and have to do a puzzle or shoot a switch on time or do that while you're trying to basically pat your head and rub your belly and read the subtitles because the audio is cutting out is frustrating. And so, maybe it's just something because I am able-bodied. I have, my sense of hearing, my sense of sight. Maybe I'm not used to relying on that. Maybe if somebody isn't able-bodied, maybe this is normal because this is just how they maybe they're just used to taking in a lot more information. But for me, I found it frustrating that the audio wasn't working because it's like, plus I think the voice acting is really great. And to take that away and say, well, you're not going to get to experience this great voice acting because some of the lines, I would read them and go, oh, that's interesting. Like that they said that to that person. I really wanted to hear that and go back and forth. And then they'll cut themselves off mid-sentence. It'll just cut off. That was really frustrating to me. And I saw some other reviews where some people mentioned that, but it didn't seem to be debilitating. Now, I'm not saying that still isn't taking away. As you can tell, I'm pretty gushing on this game so far. And the problems I had with Arise: A Simple Story don't seem to be the problem here, because it's good enough that even though I'm frustrated with the combat sometimes, when you get more tricks, when you get more, you open up more abilities with the Guardians and all that stuff, and you can kind of swap between different things. When I figured out how to swap between my things and stuff like that, all that kind of stuff's pretty cool. And so, yeah, sorry that I'm not done, but I really want to finish this one hopefully tonight. Sit with it today. My next episode will be the spoiler cast. And so it's a little bit shorter of an episode, but I want to keep it short and sweet and let you guys know I'm really enjoying the game. And everything I thought about the game was wrong, but in the best way possible. I thought, man, I'm going to talk about this game. I'm going to talk with my friend about this game. We're going to come together. We're going to say this is a great game about friendship and leadership. What did you think, Martin? Because I was going to have Martin, my friend, on. Oh, I think it was great, Joe. What do you think? We were going to talk like that. And it was going to be great. I love talking to Martin. It's always a good time having a good, discussion with him. But then when this flipped on its head and started talking about grief, I thought, well, throw that idea out the window. Now I got to start all over again. It's recontextualizing everything I think about this game. There's some other things that are thrown into the game, which I think I mentioned in my early impression videos, but I'll save that to next week. But until then, guys, I want to remind you that this podcast will hit my website, www.gamewithgrief.com, Monday morning at 7 a.m. Please go there and let me know what you think of the show. You can also write to me at gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. Again, let me know what you think of the show. Maybe there's a game you want me to review, something like that. You can also subscribe to the podcast in either Apple iTunes, the Google Play Store, or Spotify, and the audio will go up on YouTube at 7 a.m. on Monday. Just like the podcast hits my website. You can also write to me on Twitter at JustLittleJoe, so I'll try to get better about promoting the episode there. But it's a short and sweet episode this week, but I think next week is going to be much longer, and I'm going to have a lot to say about this game. I really loved it, but I'll talk to you guys again next week. Goodbye.